itself. But there was a loophole. During the Spanish-American War, American forces identified Guantanamo Bay as an ideal location for a naval base. Its position offered quick access to the Caribbean and allowed the U.S. Navy to monitor potential European interference in the region. After Spain's defeat, Cuba was occupied by the United States, with promises of eventual independence. However, that independence came with conditions. Washington imposed the Platt Amendment, which granted the U.S. the right to intervene in Cuban affairs and demanded land for naval bases. Faced with little real choice, the Cuban government agreed in 1901. 2 years later, the United States formally established its base at Guantanamo Bay under a lease agreement that would last indefinitely. For decades, American influence in Cuba remained strong, especially under the rule of Fulgencio Batista, whose government maintained close ties with Washington. But as Batista's rule became increasingly authoritarian, resistance began to grow, eventually turning into armed rebellion. The most effective of these rebel groups was the July 26th movement, led by Fidel Castro. By 1959, Batista had fled the country and the Cuban Revolution had succeeded. Once in power, Castro rejected the legitimacy of the Guantanamo lease, arguing that it had been signed by a previous regime and should therefore be considered void. However, early in the new government's rule, Cuba accidentally cashed one of the annual lease payments sent by the United States, something Washington later used to argue that the agreement was still valid. Even so, Castro wanted the base returned. But he also understood the reality of the situation. While Cuban forces might have been capable of overrunning the relatively small American garrison station there, any attack on U.S. personnel would almost